Welcome on into the Baseball Insiders. Thanks for joining us live on this beautiful Thursday. I am Adam Weinrib alongside, as always, FanSided's MLB Insider Robert Murray. And you know I'm juiced up for this one because when I was tweeting the link out, I tried to say live now, and I wrote live love by Robert Murray. Robert Murray, thanks for joining. Almost tweeted it, didn't tweet it, but the vibes are high. I'm not sure what that means. Live, laugh, love, I guess I was trying to say, but I think we are living, we are laughing. We might even be loving.
Hey, I mean, those are three important things right there. And I always do all three of those things when I'm with you. So it's good to be back for another episode of the Baseball Insiders. We got some good insight today on a lot of the stuff that's going down. Also, the unfortunate news about Mike Trout needing knee surgery. We'll get into that, what that means for his future. But Adam Weinrib, how are you, good sir?
I am overall good. I was telling you before the show, the New York Knicks ripped my chest open, filled it with cement and gravel, sewed it back up, pile drive me into the cement floor. They took cement off the floor, put it in my chest, and then there was more cement on the floor. So I felt like garbage for the last 24 hours or so, but I'm back to reality. There's more basketball to be played. The New York Rangers have advanced past the first round. That's exciting for them. And we do have a mix of good. My high vibes mood has been met with a mix of good and bad news today across the baseball world that we're obviously going to talk about. Mike Trout surgery out of nowhere. And that means, unfortunately, that we, along with many other shows, have to start talking legacy and future, which we don't want to talk about. We want to talk about Mike Trout's future in October, not necessarily long term, but unfortunately we have to. Not going to do the Stephen A. Smith and say that I don't understand how baseball players get hurt. That's a bad take, but we're going to have some better takes, hopefully. The Orioles gain a starter in Kyle Bradish and potentially John Means as well. Lose one in Grayson Rodriguez. We'll talk about what that means. Alek Manoah might get pressed into duty in Toronto despite not looking so hot in rehab. The Red Sox and Mariners are the pitching staffs that every other franchise should be jealous of. And A's watch at the end of the episode. We love our Oakland ? Still Oakland A's. But thanks for joining us, everybody. If you're a baseball fan, you're on the stream right now. DraftKings is offering a fantastic sign-up bonus for you if you're a new user. New customers can place that $5 first bet on any sport to instantly claim 200 in bonus bets when you sign up with our code BASEBALLINSIDER. You'll also receive one no-sweat single-game parlay every single day. The best part is that you will get both rewards, even if your first bet loses. Using our code BASEBALLINSIDER not only gets you these bonuses, it also directly supports the podcast. You've been considering signing up for DraftKings, make sure to use the code BASEBALLINSIDER to maximize your first bets. This offer is only available to new customers who are 21 plus and physically present in legal gambling states. Please remember to always gamble responsibly. Check the episode description for the full terms of the offer to see if you qualify. And while you're down there in the episode description, why don't you join the Discord? We got different membership tiers. It allows you to become the most informed fan in baseball. You can ask Robert and I questions in between episodes. And you're also able to get priority questions responded to in the feed here today. So thank you for joining us again in the chat. Good to see you. We're going to tackle some of these questions as the show goes on, of course. But for now, you got to like and subscribe and join us potentially on the Discord. If you aren't there, we'd love to see you. Thank you for joining us. And I see that the ticker says like and subscribe to the Yanks Go Yard podcast. That shouldn't be there. And now it's gone. But I would love to see you on the Yanks Go Yard podcast. If you want to hear some truly unhinged rambling. Here, though, we talk about the other teams that merit discussion. And right now, that's the Angels. Because I don't think nobody was secure in Mike Trout being healthy, playing this full season, especially after he said this offseason he wanted to go fuller throttle, return to the style of play that made him famous, maybe steal some more bags, and everybody was cautiously optimistic, but that pessimistic voice popped in. All of a sudden, surgery on the knee. They go out of their way to say very early, not out for the year, we don't think, but when you're already clarifying surgery news with, should be back at some point, Intel says he should come back, that sort of already sells that you're worried about the long-term nature, and no surgery is simple, especially for a player like Trout who's been way too banged up lately. No demeaning of Trout here. I don't have a hot take on surgery being good or bad. This is just deeply upsetting, and we have to spend another season where the Angels were already trending towards irrelevance, but Trout was their savior player and the one meal ticket you could hang your hat on, and also a guy trying to establish a first ballot Hall of Fame legacy. Counting numbers matter there. He's probably still getting in first ballot, but we're all having that conversation this week, no matter how long-term this surgery is.
Oh, absolutely. And it opens a door to a lot of different questions for the Angels long term, and also what Mike Trout's long term outlook looks like as well. But initially, like in the present, this is a huge blow to an Angels team that could not afford any sort of injury, especially to their top player. And now with Mike Trout expected to miss a fair amount of time after this knee surgery, they are left with not many internal solutions, or at least big time internal solutions. And they went out and signed Kevin Pillar in the immediate aftermath. Obviously, that he's not Mike Trout. He's available for a reason, but he's a veteran guy. So they're hopeful he can provide meaningful at bats and also good defense in the outfield. But as far as Mike Trout's future, like obviously this is, some people have wondered about a potential trade and what this could mean for that. I think this honestly lessens the odds of it, because what team is going to try to trade for a player that has missed a significant amount of games since 2019 and also is one of the highest paid players in baseball? It's just a really bad combo, because the best ability is availability, and he has not proven that in recent years. And as far as his Hall of Fame discussion, like I still think he's going to be a Hall of Famer, but maybe the first ballot discussion might be getting a little bit more quiet, just because, I mean, he hasn't been on the field. I mean, he's been really good when he's been out in the field for sure, but like, I mean, can you make the case for it right now? I think you can. There is a case to be made, but it's not as strong as it once was.
For me, he's first ballot, and for me, it's going to go about how we change the way that we all talk about baseball. And I don't know where we're going to be 10, 15 years from now if the current prevailing wisdom that like WAR is the best metric and prime is all that matters is the way that voters are going to see players in 15 years. I would suspect that Trout's prime from 2012 to approximately 2020. I mean, 2022, he was incredible, but we lose a lot of 21. We lose a lot of 23. And we saw a diminished version of Trout this year to an extent, still put up a 142 OPS plus in limited duty, but the average was down. He's not the same player he was. And the prime, I would say, is almost certainly over. That's the part that really stings you. Odds are we're still going to be evaluating players the same way. And odds are we're going to still look at him when he retires, no matter what comes next, like he's Sandy Koufax. He's probably going to get in on that first ballot just because writers revere him so much. Now, Jacob deGrom, I don't think you can make the same argument for, and I don't think counting numbers are going to matter as much in the future as they do now, but deGrom still is like 69 and 64 or whatever. That's not going to cut it. But Mike Trout, the homers are there, 378, obviously. 299 lifetime hitter, 173 career OPS plus. It's absurd. But I think a lot of people would be shocked to realize 2020 played a role in this. The injury-plagued years played a role in this, but 1,648 hits. Like, that's just, I think if you polled a lot of people on the street, they would guess he's at 22 or 2,300 and not even really close.
No, absolutely. And you also wonder, if he stayed healthy, where would he be at right now? I mean, it's a valid question, something I've wondered too, but he's got a really complicated legacy right now. And that being said, this is not me bashing Mike Trout by any means. Like, he is an awesome player. Historically great when he's on the field. It's just, he's not on the field as much as we all want him to be. And that just complicates what his Hall of Fame case is going to be, and just what people discuss, or how people discuss him going forward.
Yes, and it is going to be discussed for sure. Availability matters. Absolute megastar superstar. But for someone who was already struggling to be the face of the league in Anaheim and not in the postseason, and maybe didn't even want to be the face of the league, this will not help that conversation. Now we'll turn to a contending team. Sorry for the Angels, but we got to pivot. The Baltimore Orioles look every bit of the 100-win team they were last year. Every show we get on and say this lineup is relentless. Somehow the New York Yankees held them down for the first 3 games of their 4-game set. Not the fourth one. Orioles bats exploded against Carlos Rodon. But the lineup is never going to be in doubt. We know exactly what they are. Somebody might struggle, but somebody else will step up. Colton Cowser has been pretty bad for 2 weeks. Jordan Westburg and Gunnar Henderson are going to do what they're going to do. Like, that is going to carry all the way through the season. If the lineup doesn't show up in October, I would go as far as to say that's a fluke. What's not quite so certain is where the pitching stands and how they plan on patching together this pitching at the deadline with the number of high upside arms on the market looking sort of minimal, looking a little bit like a seller's market. Obviously, we're a couple months out, but Baltimore continues to lose co-aces behind Corbin Burnes. They can't get to the point where they're going 3 deep with comfortable top tier pitching right now. Burnes has been Burnes all year long. Kyle Bradish went down with a UCL sprain of some kind before the season even started. He came back today, and the corresponding move for his arrival, Grayson Rodriguez hits the IL with shoulder issues. Now, elbow injuries, we know long-term elbow injuries knock pitchers out. No, not saying they're not worrisome, but you can typically rehab an elbow injury that doesn't need surgery. If an elbow injury does need surgery, you know that pitcher is going to someday come back looking like themselves. Shoulder is a different beast. So this is short-term for now, but Baltimore, I would have to imagine, has at least some shoulder worry with Grayson Rodriguez, who looked pretty good against the Yankees this week. Didn't seem to have diminished stuff, but still goes on the shelf.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you hear the shoulder injuries, it's like anything that has to do with the arm, the shoulder, like that's always a concern for a pitcher. And with Grayson Rodriguez, the Orioles are going to give him a couple weeks to see where exactly he is. And then they're just going to evaluate, but they just want to like let him settle down and figure out where he's at in a couple weeks, and they'll reevaluate it there. But the timing on this, I mean, obviously you're getting Kyle Bradish back, which, I mean, that's big. I mean, there was some doubt in the offseason whether he even pitched this year. And I mean, now he's going to be pitching like a little after a month into the season, which is a huge win for them. He's going to end up being someone that they view as a difference maker, and his history has proven that he can be a difference maker. But the news of him coming back has obviously been subdued by Rodriguez missing or going on the IL here and missing time. And their hope is it's not going to be a long-term thing. They hope it's going to be short-term, but they'll figure it out with time and go from there. But they're holding their breath and hoping that they can end up having this rotation, which has a lot of promise, especially after getting Corbin Burnes from the Brewers intact and also like together finally, because that's what they envisioned when they acquired Burnes in the offseason.
It does feel like they're going to have to make some sort of midseason pivot here either way, unless Rodriguez and Bradish are just humming, and Bradish already is going to get his innings limited by that early absence. So that'll help a little bit. But I would imagine you'd have to imagine the O's are going to be looking at the Paul Blackburns of the world and trying to poach these. The Orioles and Miami Marlins are going to have some discussions, I would say, as well as the season goes on.
Oh yeah, and I'm more confident now that the Orioles are going to be like in a position to make that kind of move now that they have a new ownership, because immediately after getting like new ownership, they like within 24 hours it felt like they went out and got Corbin Burnes. And if that's a sign of things to come, then I think the Orioles can really maximize this window, especially since they have so many young prospects in the pipeline, but they also just have like a loaded roster as a whole. So I think if they end up getting another starting pitcher, they can really go all in and try to like win the World Series this year, but also not compromise their future. They could also use another reliever too. I mean, what team can't use another reliever, to be fair? But the Orioles, they can be aggressive. I hope their new ownership will be aggressive, and they've proven they can be when they want to be with the Burnes trade. But I expect them to be plenty active come the deadline or even like the weeks before that as well.
Need a reliever in Baltimore? Huh? How about giving your old friend Tanner Scott a call? I mean, not him. You got to call the Marlins GM, but that could be an interesting fit. Also, call him directly. Just see what's up. Check in. Sometimes your Tanner Scotts need to hear from you. Need to hear what's up with you. Sticking in the AL East, Orioles looking great, and they're in the catbird seat right now, leading the division and leading the future. We talked about the Blue Jays on the last show, showing concern for Vlad Jr. and Bo Bichette and some tough long-term decisions they're going to make. Ken Rosenthal echoed that concern this week, by the way, on Foul Territory. So very timely. If you're watching baseball podcasts online, you probably heard some tough talk about the Blue Jays this week, and they haven't exactly responded by playing very good ball in the wake of those conversations. No. They're down Yariel Rodriguez now, the rotation as a whole, and there's not a lot of depth to fill it with, which has forced the Jays to consider using Alek Manoah after a long string of bad minor league tune-up appearances, followed by one good one, which just so happened to come at the tail end of this, sparking the conversation. I am curious if you've heard anything about Manoah's road to recovery, expectations, because all eyes are going to, I think the Blue Jays were hoping that all eyes would not turn to him quite this soon. And just to read everybody, if you have not been following Manoah in the minors, he's made 5 starts. He has struck out 28 men in 19 2/3 innings. All right. 8.69 ERA on the whole, 1.98 whip. And that is after a 6-inning, 2-hit, 1-run, 12 strikeout game. So before that, it was 6 earned, 2 earned in 5 2/3, 4 earned in 3 1/3, 6 earned in 7 total in an inning and 2/3. Not the guy we saw in the 2022 All-Star game, but it seems like the Jays may have to turn to him sooner rather than later.
And that's a dangerous thing because, we've seen what he ended up doing last year when he just fell off the face of the earth. Like he had weight concerns. Obviously, his performance was pitiful. And then this year, they were really hoping that he'd end up bouncing back. And there was some trade talk in this offseason. Like I think teams inquired about him, but the Blue Jays were just not willing to sell low because they viewed him as a guy who could end up getting back to form. But their hope has to be like cautious optimism, especially from what we've seen in the minors so far. It has not been pretty at all. And an 8.69 ERA and what is it? 5 starts this spring, or not this spring, but this season in the minors, not great. So I think I'm in wait and see mode with him. I'll believe it when I see it. But the Blue Jays have every right to be skeptical, and I can't imagine they're gonna sell low on him just because we saw what he was 18 months ago or 24 months ago. He was an all-star. He was one of the best young pitchers in baseball, and he's completely fallen off the face of the earth. We'll see, but I'm not hopeful. And if he ends up getting called up to the majors, this could end up being a real. It could be trouble. It could be trouble.
Look, he's a guy who seeks the spotlight. He sought it in 2022. He went on a long media tour that year, called Garrett Cole the biggest cheater in baseball history at one point. People don't forget. But he really did make himself the center of attention, and that leads to people preying on your downfall a little bit. So if he continues to struggle in the minors, it's easy to hide. If he gets called back up and has to start and fill in for a Jays rotation that is strapped, people are going to be watching, and it's not just going to be Blue Jays fans. So does he deserve that scrutiny? I'm not here to say that. I'm just here to tell you the reality of baseball in 2024 and sports in 2024. He made himself a lightning rod. Then he took several steps back. And now upon his return, a lot of people who don't usually watch the Blue Jays are going to have that game on.
Oh, yeah. It's going to have the entire baseball world watching because, you have obviously the Blue Jays and their fans hoping that he's going to end up bouncing back. And then you have all the 29 other teams who are going to be watching that same thing, thinking maybe he bounces back, but also possibly having visions of their team trying to buy low on him and trying to trade for him. It's just all eyes are going to be on him. And if he falls and if he fails, then he's going to be the talk of Twitter. You can already envision all the fans going nuts. And Blue Jays fans saying they give up on him. If it goes well, then it's going to be awesome. But I'm really skeptical at this point. And all eyes are going to be on him, which means the pressure is just going to be really, really, really on.
If it goes well, he has the ability to talk all the trash in the world. If he can back it up, he's absolutely going to bring it. But it's going to be an event because, like you said, tough to find pitching at this deadline. If you can uncover a 2022 All-Star who's wearing out his welcome in one town, who bounces back in May, June, July, Alek Manoah could be a hot name at this deadline. But if he recedes in the way he has in the minors, he's going to be the exact opposite of that right when the Blue Jays kind of need him most. Well, two teams that don't need starters, and I'm not sure if we expected to be talking about these teams' rotations in early May, the grudge match between the Boston Red Sox and the Seattle Mariners rotations, two teams who, by the way, started the year against each other. It is tough to decide which pitching staff you want to rock with right now. The Red Sox had the early advantage. They still have the best ERA in baseball. Tanner Houck might be your Cy Young candidate leader in the clubhouse right now. Cutter Crawford not far behind. The Red Sox lose Giolito and get better. Andrew Bailey has been very clutch, but the Mariners haven't just been good lately. They've been downright historic getting themselves to the top of the West. In the final 18 games of April, they allowed 18 earned runs from the rotation. So which surprise team or rotation do you have more faith in moving forward? Right now, these two are the gold standard, and I don't think even the most optimistic fans of either team saw that coming.
No, I know I definitely did not see this coming, especially with the Red Sox, because I mentioned, and I'm pretty sure all of baseball media mentioned just how skeptical they were of the Red Sox's rotation after one, trading Chris Sale, but then also seeing all the injuries that they've suffered early on in the season, and even losing Lucas Giolito before the season even started. I thought they were going to be one of the worst rotations in baseball, but then Andrew Bailey has worked his magic, and I know we're going to be talking about him in a little bit. They got a 2.03 ERA as a rotation, which is easily the best in the majors. Like the second best is the Phillies with a 2.5, which is just incredible. Just how well the Red Sox rotation has done, and it's a credit to Andrew Bailey. But that being said, I have more belief in the Mariners right now. Just I think their young talent combined with also having a guy like Luis Castillo makes it more sustainable. That's not a discredit to the Red Sox because what they've done is awesome. But I think the Mariners have the pieces in place to make this more sustainable. But we'll see in this series. And I think it's going to end up featuring some really, really enticing pitching matchups. But if you have to give me a choice between either team, I'm kind of buying the Mariners right now.
The Red Sox, yeah, my Red Sox not finishing last place pick starting to feel pretty good at this point in time, especially with the Jays and Rays looking the way that they have. I would choose the Mariners in a short series right now, but I got nothing bad to say about these Boston Red Sox. Who Andrew Bailey. Every time you bring up, and we brought up on this show that like, hey, that might be a major league manager sooner rather than later, Red Sox fans will chime in and say, yeah, I agree with you. And maybe it's here next year because they know Alex Cora, World Series winning manager, but the rumors have been floating around there forever. So I guess that, it'd be hard to have a better month than Andrew Bailey just had in his attempt to become a big league manager. I guess there's a chance that he could just take the reins in Boston.
I mean, he definitely could. I mean, if Cora leaves, I mean, you look at the work that he's done through 1 month with that Red Sox rotation. I mean, how can you not consider him? Especially the work that he did in San Francisco before that as well. And he's got deep ties in that Red Sox organization. I'm pretty sure he's really close with Craig Breslow, which that also definitely can't hurt. So I think if Cora leaves in the offseason, which, I mean, it's possible. I mean, considering his contract status, you never know, but I think Andrew Bailey at this point would put himself squarely in the mix to be their next manager. And you also got to imagine too, at the rate they're going, there's going to be other teams that are in the mix and he'll be interviewing for other jobs. Like he's done one of, if not the most impressive jobs in baseball from a coaching perspective all year, at least to start. Yeah,
if I'm the Red Sox and I do lose Cora to a lucrative offer or he just doesn't want to stay, I'm not even sure I'd do an interview. I think I just might be like, all right, Andrew, you good? You feel ready? Like it might be a couple of question long interview, just like, hey, so Alex is gonna leave. We're gonna lose AC. You still want to be a manager or no? Because like I'll give you 24 hours. Just tell me if you want it, it's yours. If not, we'll start talking to people. We'll bring Ron Renneke in here, but if you want it, it's yours. I think that's kind of where I stand.
No, absolutely, and we'll see. But I'll tell you, it's one of the more intriguing storylines of this entire year. I mean that, and also the status of Skip Schumacher in Miami. Mm-hmm. I mean, him redoing his contract so he can be free at the end of the year seems like a pretty good sign he's not going to be returning next year. I mean, that's just me reading the tea leaves more than anything, but it's going to be a very fascinating offseason of managerial change or potential managerial change. And I think what Craig Counsell did in trying to get the biggest contract ever to try to set the market for manager contracts is going to have a definite effect this winter when the season's over.
Well, in terms of great stories, it's probably worth touching on before we answer a couple questions, talking about America's team, and that is the Oakland A's. And they are America's team because I'm actually not sure where they play their home games. So right now they could be playing their home games anywhere in America. I wouldn't know. They don't have a game today. No game on Thursday. Friday series against the 9-24 Miami Marlins. So that means that if the A's want to stay hot and if the A's want to sweep a dreadful Marlins team, that'll put them at 18-17 on the season. So is this a contender? No. Are they going to win the West? I don't think so. But pretty big middle finger here to a lot of people, not fans of the community, but a pretty big middle finger to a lot of folks the way they've come out. And I think a couple weeks ago, you saw people, you even see people in the chat here going, hey, what will it take to get Mason Miller in trade? How many A's are going to strip that down to spare parts? I mentioned Paul Blackburn as a deadline candidate earlier. And I think, look, when we get to the deadline, they probably can't resist getting offers for a lot of vets. But Mason Miller, I don't think is going anywhere. And I don't think the A's want you to think of them as a joke based on the way they're playing so far.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they've definitely shown they're not a joke. I mean, they're 15-17 right now, and they're 7-3 in their last 10.
Yep.
And they're also 4 games above the Astros in the standings. If you would have told me that before the season started, that a month into the year, the A's would be 4 games ahead of the Astros, I would have asked what you were smoking.
Yep.
If I'm being totally real. And I would ask
fair question. And by the way, you can ask me what I'm smoking whenever you want. I'll always answer. It's usually nothing. But especially if I had that A's take, I think it would be fair to wonder if I was like doing an ayahuasca trip.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. Ayahuasca shout out's a good one. Shout out to Aaron Rodgers, by the way, FYI. But I'll tell you what the A's have done and the early part of the season here is incredible. And I got to give him credit. I also got to give credit to Mark Kotsay. Like when he took that job, I mean, he knew exactly what he was getting himself into. Like that team had little hope whatsoever. And yet he's turned it into basically a 500 team, and he should be commended for it because that's about as impressive of a job as you'll find in baseball. Like between him and Mark Kotsay, or him and Andrew Bailey, those are 2 really, really, really impressive coaches right now.
100%. And good job by the A's players, resistance movement to all the nonsense going on in Oakland and your current home. Congrats, everybody. Couple of questions in the chat before we sign off. Again, we'll see everybody right back here Monday at 3:30 Eastern. We appreciate everybody coming and popping by with your questions, with your views, with your eyeballs, with your interactions. We love everybody. Shout out to the Baseball Insiders family. Couple of questions here about the Padres, of course. So worth addressing the weekly pods question of if they intend to infuse this offense with anybody and whether they'll add a bat. Donovan Solano to me seems like the easy one. He's in JD Martinez mode right now, just ramping up to join the Padres at some point, you would think. Jurickson Profar right now carrying that Padres offense though. So they undoubtedly could use, if they intend to be a playoff team, a little addition of lumber.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you the Profar, him doing what he's doing, like that's props to him. And he loved being in San Diego. Like San Diego was where he wanted to be. I'm pretty positive he took less money to be there. I think he had more lucrative offers elsewhere, but he wanted to be in San Diego just from his familiarity and his belief in that team. And lo and behold, and also like he wanted an opportunity to play a lot, and the Padres were going to offer him that. And it was a perfect match. He took it, and he's really like taken off with it. And as far as the question of what bat they'll eventually add, I think Solano is probably a good call. Luis Arraez, like it makes sense for sure. I don't know of any active talks there right now. But I think that's a conversation that should probably be had sooner rather than later, especially considering the state of the Marlins right now. I know they just swept the Rockies, so good for them. I mean, that doesn't really count for much.
They're on one now. The Marlins are officially on fire. They took the Rockies down.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, they're the next juggernaut in baseball now. But yeah, I think it's a conversation that makes a lot of sense. I think the Padres can do a lot of things, but I wouldn't expect anything in the near future. I know there's been teams scouting their minor league system. I don't know what to necessarily make of that, or if that's a sign that anything's imminent. But if there is something imminent, I am not aware of it.
But we will obviously keep everybody posted. We know there's plenty of Padres fans who watch the show. We will certainly keep you informed if we learn anything else that changes. Got some good Brewers fans in the Discord and in the chat as well. Quick Brewers question before we sign off. Brandon Reinfleisch asking if the Brewers are looking for external rotation help, or are they good to wait out Jacob Junis, who is a Discord favorite, and who was already injured and then got hit by a fly ball. So
Tough.
Yikes. And DL Hall, part of the Hall from the Corbin Burns trade, who is also laid up right now. As we saw, Milwaukee is still towards the top of that division. They're currently leading the Central by a half game, pending the results of the Chicago Cubs barn burner over at Citi Field. But the New York Yankees offense isn't doing much these days, but they had their way with the fill-ins in the back half of that Brewers rotation. Joe Ross, not his finest moment. The Brewers could certainly use some starting depth. So are they looking for external rotation help, or are they just going to maybe wait out these injuries?
I think I know as a fact they've looked outside the organization at different points. I know one player that they had interest in was Mike Clevenger, but nothing ever panned out with that. The White Sox always seemed like the most likely option there. But the fact that they were interested in Clevenger would make me think that they are going to be open to looking outside the organization for help, especially considering that Junis and Hall are both they're out right now with injuries. But they are hopeful that, especially in Hall's case, the time away can allow him to reset and figure it out. Because I mean, he showed signs for sure when he was starting games, but he wasn't able to just do it consistently. And I think that's going to be the big thing for him moving forward. And he's got to be able to pitch deep into games, because that's one thing that he was not able to do. He's got the talent to do it for sure, but he may end up being a guy who this year could be better as a reliever and then next year be a starter. But I think ideally this year they'd want him to be a starter.
Yeah, and those innings might get naturally limited anyway by this IL stint. They got plenty of time to play around. They should be close to the top of the Central all year, but of course, no guarantees. You got to take the wins where they come. Thanks for joining, everybody. Again, another good show. Tough show. Don't want to talk about Mike Trout injuries on every show, but I think we had a fun enough time already answered some of your questions. Appreciate you joining us. Always feel free to drop those questions in the Discord between shows. We'll get to as many as we can. Drop us a line in the Discord if you've got questions ahead of our next live show. We'll make sure to hit those, and if they come up during the show, comment section is where to find us. Next show, Monday, 3:30 Eastern, right back here alongside Robert Murray, who I thank, as always, for joining me. Thanks, dude.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate you. Good show today. And we'll see everyone, Monday?
I will see everybody right back here Monday, thinking about the NBA playoffs, scaring myself the whole time with how much I'm thinking about the NBA playoffs. I'll get back into baseball mode by next show. I promise everybody, I will certainly watch baseball this weekend, and I know you will too. Keep the pressure on with the questions, and Robert and I will be right back here on Monday.
Darn right. Thank you, everybody.